Okay, so let me go back here. We should be okay. We have about okay. One, two, about a good 35 seconds or 40 before we go on air. So,
Sounds like a plan.
all
Well,
right.
y'all look like everybody's working from home today. I was wondering if you go were headed in today, and I figured not, but I didn't know.
Uh, we're we're all at home. I mean, Quabila's been doing the show from home pretty much since the pandemic
Yeah.
started. I usually go in,
Good.
but I went yesterday after I finished my A-State lunch and learn to get some things done because I know that after that, once the roads got covered up, probably may be a while before I can go again, but I can still log in remotely to do whatever I need to do.
All right, y'all. Here we go. Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday to you. Happy icy Thursday to everyone in Arkansas. Well, at least in Northeast Arkansas. Um, you're tuning into Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. Our special guest today, and I'm also joined by our station manager, Mackenzie Kell. Special guest today is Senator Dan Sullivan. And please, Senator, give me the district number. I am so sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, Senate District 21, which
All
covers
right.
all of Jonesboro, most of Craighead County, but all of Jonesboro.
Okay, thank you. And so this morning show is abbreviated, so we're going to get right to our discussing the Senate concurrent resolution. That's a big word, a lot of words, but Senator Sullivan is going to break that down to exactly what that means. So I'll let you have the floor, sir.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, a concurrent resolution means that both the House and the Senate agree on what the resolution is. And a resolution is non-binding, meaning it doesn't become law. It just shows whether the Senate, in this case, what their views are or feelings are about a certain topic. So we may have a resolution to honor many things. In fact, we had an earlier resolution. It was Senate Resolution 4 celebrating Black History Month during the month of February. So it's typical that we have various resolutions. The resolution that I put forward before the Senate is called to commemorate American History Month. And the purpose of that was to kind of blend African American history with American history, because American history is African American history, and African American history is American history. So that was the purpose of it.
Okay, so for those who have not, well, one, let me ask this: is there a way to actually read for everyone to read the proposal
Sure.
as
Yeah,
it stands now?
yes, they can go to the Arkansas legislative website, which is ARCLEG, ARKLEG, and they can type in the search bar, they can type in SCR6 and it will pop up. That's
Okay.
SCR Senate, C concurrent, R resolution, Senate concurrent resolution. It'll
So
pop up for them. It's 11 pages long. It's quite long.
okay. Would that be under like the website I'm looking at? It shows bills and then
Yes.
acts. And
On the
so
top left-hand side, there's a little place you can type in SCR6 and
okay.
that should pop up.
Okay. All right. So please give us some more details about what this entails, because as you stated it, it's some may say that it's almost like you're either erasing or eliminating, not highlighting one
Sure.
over the other. So
Yeah, I get it. We heard quite a bit on the floor. Well, first of all, a senator, and it's not about individuals, and I appreciate that, but Senator Chesterfield introduced the Senate resolution for Black History Month. I'm looking at it right now. It's about a page long. It says, several things about Black history and Black History Month. And then at the end, it has about 6 or 8 lines where it talks about just several individuals. It doesn't say what they did. It doesn't say why we commemorate them necessarily. It just kind of lists their names. Well, this past fall, I went to a pro-family conference in Dallas, Texas, and we spent several days. It was a 4-day event, and we spent several days and several hours talking about African American history and the contributions to the founding of our nation and to the government of our nation. Specific to that topic, we talked about who those African Americans were who contributed. And I thought it was just really important. And so we came up with, me and several others worked on this to commemorate American history. And our bill, our resolution, is 11 pages long. And it cites not only the names of the people, but the contributions of the African Americans, what they did, who they were, how they contributed to our government, how the government felt about it, whether it talks about Republicans and Democrats and what parties were there. Again, it's 11 pages long. When Senator Chesterfield went to the floor, she held the resolution up and said, "This is the resolution for Black History Month that we do every year. I'd appreciate a good vote." No one gave me an opportunity to be a co-sponsor. No one came up a couple of days ahead of time and said, "Hey, Senator Sullivan, do you want to be a co-sponsor? You want to read through this and have anything you can want to discuss or add?" Of course, I could have read it on the website, and I did. But that's kind of how the resolution went down. I don't know if your listeners even know that the Senate does a Black History Month resolution. If they've even heard it, they can go online and read it. But I was a little bit discouraged when I heard that we didn't really actually take time to highlight those people. So in this bill, Senate Resolution, Concurrent Resolution 6, Senator Stubblefield went down to the floor and read the entire thing, 11 pages. It took probably 15 or 20 minutes. It's a long read, and called out and recognized every one of those people, everyone and their contributions for what they did to American history and African American history. When this was over, and I'll kind of close out with this unless you ask some questions, but when this was over, a gentleman who works for the Senate, he's out front and helps keep things under control. And there are a number of men and women who do that out in front of the Senate chamber. As I walked out, of course, the resolution failed, 4 for it and 21 against. But when I walked out, an African American gentleman motioned to me and came down and said, "Senator Sullivan, that's the best thing I've ever heard. And I appreciate you so much reading that from the well." All of those things, he said, I didn't know some of that. Senator Stubblefield had another gentleman, African American, who called him to the side and went back to Senator Stubblefield's office and thanked him for reading every one of those names out, because they hadn't done that in the Black History Month resolution. They just laid it on the table and said, let's vote on it. And this gentleman sat down with Senator Stubblefield, and Senator Stubblefield said he was very emotional and appreciative for us reading all these names and actually commemorating the people. So that's kind of an overview and look at it. People can go online and read the whole thing. I hope they'll share this with their schools and ask people in their schools to share this with their classes. There was one error in it. We said that President Kennedy signed a document in 1960 and it should have been 1961. The people who drafted it and typed it out came and said, we were aware of that error. We just didn't make the change in the typo. So, okay, I'll admit to that. It should have been 1961. But I'll stop there and let y'all ask some questions if you have them.
All right, for those who are just tuning in, people have been wondering what are you specifically answering. So for those just tuning in, we are speaking with Senator Dan Sullivan of District 12, I believe.
21.
District 21 in Arkansas. And he is talking about the concurrent resolution commemorating American history, in which he recently put forth in the Arkansas Senate. Senator, you mentioned that the resolution did actually fail, and I did watch a little bit of the video where some of the senators had some concerns. Some senators felt that there are other things that should be focused on instead of this. So some people thought that the wording of the resolution kind of favored one side over the other. Why do you think that the resolution ultimately failed? Something that you
Well,
intended to celebrate history, but your fellow senators voted against it.
first of all, let me frame it. Before I ran this, I sent several copies out. Laganzi, I sent one to you, asked you to review it, and you sent back and asked, and I asked you to review it and add something, and you sent me something to add.
The rights. I asked you to add the Wrightsville fire.
Yeah, and this document particularly was about contributions to government, and although that was a horrendous event and a true event, it wasn't a contribution to the formation of our government and how our government operates. That's part one. I sent it to Pastor Ray Scales, and I asked Ray to review it. And after he did, I called him back up and I said, Ray, anything you want to add, anything that you think needs to come out? I said, Ray, this could be seen as very political, Democrats and Republicans. And Ray's comment to me was, yes, it is. However, it's our history. And I said, Ray, I don't want you to use your name necessarily because people will think I'm pandering or, think whatever they want. But Ray said, no, I think it's a good document. And our history is what it is. And I sent it to several other prominent African Americans in Jonesboro and in the state, all of whom agreed that yes, it does talk about Democrats and Republicans, but that's our history. In fact, Senator Chesterfield, the day before, I think, and asked about the 1619 project that spelled out some things. Senator Chesterfield, in her own words, said, we can't run from our history. So does this document point to Republicans and Democrats? Yes.
Let's go to our live feed for a couple questions. Let's see. S.L. Robinson asked, why do you not do a better job of working with your constituents instead of what's popular for your party?
Well, again, I think I just answered that. I sent that to several members in our community, African-American leaders in our community, prominent ones. People, I don't have permission to use their name right now, but you know who they are, Laganzi. Like Ray.
Well, I know you mentioned Dr. Scales. That was the one that I was familiar with.
Several other prominent ones. They didn't give me their permission to use their name as an endorsement, but I sent it out to several. And not one of them came back with critical comments. People said, add this or add that. But again, the document was particular to the formation of our nation and government. I sent it to prominent leaders in our state, African Americans in our state, and asked them. And remember, the Black Caucus, the African American History Month, Black History Month, it's a page and a half long. So when people say, why didn't you include this? Why didn't you include that? You left out this. Folks, this document's a page and a half. It leaves out all kinds of things. Nobody commented about them. Nobody said your document doesn't include this, it doesn't include that. And in the 1619 project, there was a lot of talk also about parties. Nobody commented on that. In the Senate debate, it did get very political. And that's the reason people are afraid to talk about these things. I was elected not to sit down quietly. I was elected to promote my community. And before I was elected, I met with a number of our African-American leaders, many of our pastors in our community. And I pledged to them that I would not sit quietly, that I would promote our African-American community. That's exactly what this document does. Again, I hope that people will pull up Senate Concurrent Resolution 4, that's about a page long, and see who it commemorates, and then take a look at this document because it does a whole lot more.
So let me ask you this question. So now that it's been voted on and now that people are starting to speak their feelings on it, are you willing to look at and accept that feedback and possibly rerun it with the suggestions and the corrections that you have received?
Sure. I mean, I don't have plans to rerun it right now, but one of the biggest comments we got from the Senate And from people, it took too long to read this on the floor. As a matter of fact, the former president of the Senate, uh, uh, Jim Hendren, stood up to speak against the bill and said, this is worthless. Now, those are his words, where this is a waste of time to read 11 pages commemorating African Americans and their contribution to our government, whether they're Democrat or Republican. He said it was a waste of time to do that when we should be working on more important things. Folks and listeners, I take exception to that. These are contributions that African Americans make are great. We take time to read the names of every victim of the 9/11. We take the time to do that. Not in the Senate, not in the Arkansas House, but we take the time on anniversaries to do that. Reading names like this lets people know that we think this is important. So yeah, there are volumes written on African American history. So if you want to help me leave things out, fine. If you've got some things you want to add in there, I'm fine with that. I hope that answers your question.
Robin Kuykendall says, let me find it. How can we highlight the many, many unknown Black people with the naming resolution? Maybe a tomb of the unknowns. I think what she's saying is for the people who made contributions whose stories are not known or who are not told.
Amen. I mean, if you look at the the Black History Month resolution, there are probably maybe 15 names in here. If you look at our document, it has 11 pages of names of people. So this is an effort, a resolution to commemorate those people, take the time to honor them. And if there are more that we need to honor and recognize, I'm all for it. I spent 2 days, spent my own money to drive to Dallas and learn about African American history. So, I'm a little bit taken aback, and I sent the document to a number of leaders. I'm a little bit taken aback when people say, Senator, you didn't include this, or you left me out. Yeah,
but let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question right quick. Well, first I want to read this comment from Robin, and then I want to ask this question. She says, I just read FCR 6. Where is Arkansas history in there? And I noticed it doesn't mention that school integration was denied in many Arkansas districts into the 1970s. So it looks like something you may need to add in there. But my question is, out of all of the things that's in there and that you learned, what was the bit of African American history that struck you the most, that kind of personally hit home to reaffirm your commitment to the job in which you serve in?
Well, first, let me respond to Ms. Kuykendall. Ms. Kuykendall, read the Black History Month resolution. It doesn't speak to any of that either. So to be critical of our resolution, I think is a little bit disingenuous, or and maybe I'm reading the wrong tone, but for people to be critical because we leave information out, I suggest go read the resolution that was passed. And nobody objected to any of that then. Secondly, what was the most profound, to Laganzi's point, what was the most profound? I think the most profound, and it wasn't any one event, it was to see the number of African Americans who made critical decisions, life decisions in our revolution. And to see the loss of life, I think one of the first, if not the first, African American who died in the Revolutionary War was an African American. I didn't know that. And then to know that
you wouldn't happen to have his name. You wouldn't happen to have his name, would you?
Yeah, then to know that we had an African American who actually was a slave, and as a slave, he was the pilot of the ship, Confederate ship. He actually stole the ship and sailed it through the Confederate lines wearing the Confederate uniform and sailed it up to to the other side, and then became a colonel or an admiral, whatever his title was, became an admiral for the North. So the contributions, and I'd never heard those stories. There were
Senator, I believe that was Robert Smalls.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't know it. But, those were things that I think I learned. And if one were to ask me, Dan, what did you learn? That's why I went to Dallas for 2 days, was to learn. That's why I wrote the resolution, to share that information. And if this had passed and they wanted to change a date or change a name, fine. We would have done that and sent it to every school in District 21. We can't do that now. But if someone wants to take the document and work through it and share it, I'm very open to that. They can pull it down off the web and make their own document. Yes.
All right, Senator. I'm sorry to have to cut it a little short. We're running down to our last minute and a half. And so I know this conversation needs to actually be longer. Unfortunately, we're all short on time today. But I want you to please take this question back to the Senate. Okay, because there has been countless numbers of contributions made by African Americans, how is the bill going to? It's impossible to outline every single thing that has happened, either Arkansas history or world history, not world, United States history. Should could the resolution be maybe have an amendment that says to include all again, this 11 pages doesn't cover even half of Arkansas history. So let
Yeah.
alone African American history. But unfortunately, we have to cut this conversation right here. There are other questions in the comments section. If you could go back and look through the live feed section,
Sure. Let me make one
and try to
comment.
address some of those comments.
I'm going to be putting out several videos in the next few weeks, short videos for people to watch commemorating African Americans. I think it's a great topic. I think it's a great issue, and I'm going to do more to promote African Americans in our community. And if people want to get in touch with me, check out my Facebook page. But thank you for today's opportunity. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Senator, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I apologize we could not get to all of your questions and comments. But thank you all. Join us tomorrow morning. We'll be right back Friday. Have a great day. Oh, we got 2 minutes. Okay, we got 2 minutes. Laganza, you got anything to say?
No, we can just keep going. We don't have long left on the radio, but we can keep the live feed going for a few more minutes to try to get to some of the questions. So we'll go ahead. We'll take the last couple minutes on the radio and we'll keep the live feed going a little bit longer.
Well, I did want to read Shanquetta's comment right quick. I apologize again to everyone else, not trying to overlook. But Shanquetta says, the issue and continued issue with history in our country is that it is always told from the eyes of the victor. An example, white males. Even though with sharing Black history, it is often censored to make mainstream comfortable. Why not allow the education department and other scholars to handle curriculum in our legislature, work on bills to ensure equity in our public schools, and come up with funding to support poor performing schools? Shanquetta really states what a lot of us feel, and I've stated for the longest that our school system, not just with African American history, the curriculum period needs kind of an overhaul so that our students are able to grow and learn and compete on a global scale with other students. But that's my take on it.
Listen, I would agree. And, run for your local school board. Get involved. I think very few people even attend school board meetings. We had a great discussion and debate a few days ago in the House about curriculum and how it needs to be in the hands of the local school board. So if you have questions about what your local school board can do, we don't need state legislation. We need people to get involved right here in Jonesboro, right here with our local school board, and help drive that curriculum. I agree, but it doesn't take legislation. It takes local involvement.
Yeah. So again, to everyone that's listening on air, I apologize. We're going to have to go at that. We want to thank you for tuning in and for supporting Kelly K. If you would like to learn more, I put the link to this particular resolution in the Facebook live feed. So please go and click on it and read it for yourself. Make sure to contact Senator Sullivan and others if you have any additions, corrections, anything you would like to say concerning this resolution. Thank you.
Yeah, can I ask you, please, would you please post the Black History Month resolution? Because I think it's important people compare those.
She's already posted the link in the comments.
Right. I mean, it's important to look at those side by side.
I'll find that one as well. But we want to thank everybody. We're going to have to go. Everything's time, so sorry. But thank you all for joining us. Have a great and blessed day and stay safe on this ice. Okay, we're still on Facebook, you all. So
we're gonna keep. We'll just kind of go with the flow and keep on the Facebook Live. So Got lots of questions and lots
Good.
of comments. Vivian Taylor says, yes, embarrassing to learn about slavery when you get to college because Arkansas schools don't teach it. How would you like to respond to that, Senator?
Well, true. That's why we did the resolution. I mean, when you look at the Black History Month resolution and your own senator, now yours did, other senators say it's a waste of time to be reading this, take 15 or 20 minutes to read Senate Resolution 11 or 6 hours. When they say it's a waste of time, what does that say to the people of Arkansas about the importance and what your legislature, what your Senate thinks about African American history? You know, I think that's part of where it starts, and that's why we do resolutions, is to say these things are important. And for Senator Stubblefield to go down and read 11 pages, it took maybe 20 minutes to do that. But what a great thing. And when Senator Chesterfield testified against Senate Resolution 6, mine, she said that had she read all of the Senate resolution heard, that Black History Month, that she thought she would have been, I forget the word she used, but it wouldn't have been appreciated from the Senate. I would have appreciated it. I would have appreciated had we read those names. The people of Arkansas would have appreciated. The gentlemen that kind of keep control outside the Senate would have really appreciated it. So I agree 100%. And I hope we can find some people to work together locally that will help us. If our Senate can't pass this resolution, maybe our city council can, maybe our school board can. But this is the information that's critical that we get out. And again, I wasn't elected to sit quietly. You know, I'm going to go down and make the case for our community, as you'll see in some economic development issues coming up soon. But I'm kind of going on and on. I don't want to be too political. You got a lot of questions. Go ahead.
I'll ask this right quick. So obviously you put forth the resolution with the intent to ensure that we learn more about history. But at the same time, you had a bill in the legislature, a couple bills in the legislature that were put through that some people saw as trying to make sure certain history is taught. So how do you reconcile this two? Because it kind of seems like on one end, let's make sure that this history is taught, but then you have another potential bill that's being pushed that tells people if you teach this or that, we could potentially remove your funding. So how do you respond to that?
You talking about the 1619 project?
And it was, I think it was one other bill. I don't have the actual title in front of me, but it was related to teaching of certain topics.
You know, I thought that bill came out pretty well. It didn't pass. You know, that bill started out, and as all bills do, go through various amendments. And it came down, the argument against the bill, and one of the main reasons it failed was that it pulled away from local control. And I agree with that. On the one side, I think we need to have facts. And I think there are some things in the 1619 project that are not factual. However, there's a lot of things that we discuss and debate that aren't based on necessarily on facts. It's people's opinion. And that
HB 1231 H and 1218.
Yeah, I think the resolution, I'm fine with that it didn't pass. I mean, the biggest argument that I heard, and Representative Reggie Murdoch, a friend of mine, African-American friend in the House, you know, he spoke to this on the radio the other day, and I think he accurately described it, that this should be local. And I agree with that. And I've had a number of phone calls about it. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, I think they speak to their local school board. And if you want that in the curriculum, then promote that. If you don't want it in there, then don't promote it. But I think we at the legislature can take too much control too frequently. And I think this was a case that needs to be handled locally.
We had a question. Brittany Lewis says, why did you sign on as a co-sponsor for SB 289?
SB 289, you'll have to tell me what that is.
And it says, title to create the Medical Ethics and Diversity Act.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that passed. I think that's the one that allows people to have some choice in performing certain medical procedures. So if I'm a nurse or a doctor, that there are certain medical procedures that I have the right of conscience on. And I can say that I choose not to partake in that and be a part of that based upon my right of conscience. It's a good bill. It stands up for people to have some choice. There are protections in there that if you read the bill, there are a lot of protections in there. You can't do it in an emergency situation. You can't do it over protected populations, I think. In other words, because somebody is a man or a woman or African American or Asian, those are protected classes. That's not a right of conscience issue, but those are outlined pretty clearly.
All right, let's see what else do we have. And got some comments. Let's look and see if we have any more questions. Q, did you have any question?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of comments. Again, if Senator Sullivan can go back and just kind of read through and see if he can, address some of the statements. But Sean Porter raised another point. And again, it goes back to our original discussion of, because history is so expansive, it's impossible to include every single thing into one resolution. That's why there's history from, they break it down, 17 whatever to whatever, and then 18 to, it's been a long time since I've been in history, but they break those history down in segments, because it's impossible to learn everything in one school term, one semester, or however you have it. So again, I guess my main question is, why is the resolution as it's written needed per se, or why can't it just say, from this point forward, Arkansas schools will teach all of history,
Sure.
the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just that
Great question.
encompasses it all.
Yeah, here's a question here too. Did you send a copy to the NAACP? And how
No.
did you determine and what was the determination process on which African American leaders that you spoke to?
Good question. Let me go to the first question first. The resolution starts a conversation. I would have never been on your program had I not filed this. So we're having a great conversation here. You didn't have anybody on when we filed the first Black History Month. You may have had other historians on, but you didn't have a legislator on to talk about it. And I think that's important. As to who did I vet this with, I did talk with two African-American senators, gave them a copy of this. I gave one a copy of it. She came back to me with the comments that it was biased or and towards a party. It made the Democrats look bad. I tried to give it to another senator. She was busy, said she had to leave. She asked me to call her. I called her. She didn't return the call. She called me the morning we were going to run the resolution, expressing concerns. I did reach out to, again, other state leaders, African-American state leaders around our state who liked it and appreciated it, just like I did Ray. I don't know if Ray Scales decided to send it to the NAACP, but folks, this whole resolution is to say, let's have this conversation. And I am so thankful. And you asked about education. How do we educate people? It's not only up to our schools.
Senator, I hate to interrupt you, but someone asked, did you consult the Arkansas Black Caucus?
Yes.
Okay. Keep going.
Well, again, it's not up to the schools, or not the only place to educate people. Your radio station does a great job. You have guests on, you highlight on your Facebook page various African Americans throughout history and current. And the questioner asked, how did I decide, make the decisions to include or exclude? Laganzi, no different than what you do on your show. I think you highlight different individuals on your Facebook page, artists, musicians, historians. You just make some decisions to do that. And there's some rhyme or reason to what you do. But it's just pretty much, you can't include it all, and you just start the conversation. And that's what we're doing here. Again, the opportunity, your listeners would have never heard from me on this had we not put this out there. I think it's a great starting point. It's not an ending point. And you want to do it, this particularly was on African American involved in American history. If people want to do one on Arkansas history, great, let's do one. However, the
Senator, Senator, I'm sorry, we got another question come through.
Well, let me finish this one. I'll jump back to you. The former president of the Senate said it's not worth the time to do this. That's what he said. And he was a white guy, by the way. And he said it wasn't important enough to do this. And Senator Chesterfield didn't think it was important enough to even read the names of the 15 or 20 people who were on the Black History Month. So I'm a little defensive or offensive when people say it doesn't include my thing. Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay, so 2 more questions have come through. The first is, which African American legislatures co-sponsored this resolution? And that's from Shanquetta Cunningham, and Vivian Taylor says, what is your stance on reparations?
No African Americans co-sponsored it.
Were you approached?
Was I approached?
Did you approach any African American senators or?
Yeah, I said that a couple of times. Yeah, I gave it to several. Yes.
Okay. And Vivian Taylor asked, what is your stance on reparations?
Well, you'd have to tell me exactly what reparations are, because does reparations mean you write a check? Does reparations mean you get discounts on housing, discounts on food, discounts on our reimbursements, however you want to put that?
Well, I think she'd be asking, are you in favor of in any form? I know obviously it would have to be narrowed down. There'd have to be a lot of discussions on what form would that take. But I think she's asking from the standpoint, what is your stance on, do African Americans should the African Americans get any kind of reparations at all?
Well, yeah, I'm not, that's not a yes or no question. That's a debatable question. If they want to sit down and tell me what that means, what is it you want? Does reparations mean that I have to give my house to somebody? Do reparations mean that I write a check to somebody? Does reparations mean the government does that? The reparations, I don't have any idea what she means by that.
Well, she actually comments, she says it means paying back Black people in money.
Oh, so they want a check? I don't favor that, no.
All right, let's see. We have a comment from Patty Harbison DeFord, who says, I've learned a lot about Black history through this radio station. Growing up in the 60s and 70s and being white, there was no mention of Black history at all. I never knew about the 54th Massachusetts Infantry until a movie was made about it, mainly because the history books were written by whites. And let's see, Shanquetta Cunningham comes with a question. So if your African-American colleagues are not co-sponsors and the intent is to highlight said community, do you not view it as problematic in telling of this opposition?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. However, again, I sent this out to African-American leaders in our community who said, this is good. It's a good starting point. And you can tell, I can tell from the comments that the questions have, this is why it failed in the Senate. Because people have problems with a white guy doing this, me. That I didn't include whatever it is their agenda is. No, I didn't. This was my resolution. It's something I spent hours and hours and days working on in order to start this conversation, and I appreciate it. And to say, well, you're a white guy, you don't get to do this unless some Black people sign on, that's part of the problem. When a white guy tries to take a stance and tries to fulfill their promise to the African-American leaders here in Jonesboro, that I would promote African-American history, African-American values, African-American economy. I'm committed to doing that. I've got working on a project right now to bring jobs to Jonesboro. If we hire African-Americans, am I a bad guy? Because as a white guy, I promoted economic development for African-Americans. Can only African-Americans promote economic development? Certainly not. No one would say that. But we're saying that about a resolution. And I think that's the attitude that holds us back.
Definitely, Senator, definitely been a good discussion. Like Wabila say, I would just encourage you to continue in what you're doing, and hopefully more people will join in Because no matter how you feel about today's conversation or what's transpired with this bill, I think we all can agree on African American history does need to be told. And African American history is not always pretty. There are some things that have happened that have been very tragic, some things that have been even unfathomable. And one of them, which I did when I gave my feedback, I asked Senator Sullivan to include the Wrightsville fire. So for those of you that may not know, the Wrightsville fire it was this boys' school where young Black boys were sent to. They were padlocked inside the building, and the building was set on fire, and many of them were killed. And the building was later razed to build some different property. Feel free to look it up. But the point I would just like to say to conclude with, I think it's important that we learn from our history, African American history, and all racist history, because there has been atrocities and things that have been committed against all races. Because if we don't learn about what we've all been through, we're going to repeat history. And I don't think nobody wants to see atrocities committed in the year 2021 and beyond. So I would encourage each and every one of you, whether through his bill or wherever, take the
Like,
time to study history and learn from history. Senator,
can I make a point? Can I make one point before you close out?
Yes, that's why I said, Senator, you have the last word.
Oh, great. Well, listen, I'd ask folks again to look up Senate Concurrent Resolution 4. In the Senate, there are no white co-sponsors. There are, I think, just one or two in the House. No one approached me about this. No one came up and said, Dan, would you like to sign on to the Black History Month? I would have loved to. I think it's a great thing. And I hope the people that are questioning me today, and the critical questions particularly, would look up Senate Resolution 4 and compare what Senate Resolution 6 does to what Senate Resolution 4 does. Compare the opportunity that I did to come on your show today and take these questions and respond and promote it to what's been done with your legislators in the past who are willing to come before you and have these difficult conversations. But I'm willing to do that, and I appreciate it. And I hope we can continue to do this. And maybe when COVID ends, we can all get together and rent a room somewhere and have a real discussion over what we can do, not only to promote African American history, but African American economic development. We need that big time in our community. Again, thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate the great questions from the listeners and look forward to visiting more. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you again, Sullivan, and thank Senator Sullivan and everyone who has tuned in. And for everyone that's out there, please be safe. Those roads are icy. People are slipping and falling. Cars are running into ditches and posts. So if you don't have to go out, don't go out. But if you do, please stay safe, because we want to make sure that each and every one of you are here to continue to support. So thank you again, Senator Sullivan, and you guys have a great and blessed day. This is Kate, LEK, on 2.5 FM.